For 8 months, she claimed her desire had vanished, that stress and hormones had taken its toll. But the truth? It wasn't that she had no passion left. She just gave it all to someone else. While I stayed loyal, she mocked my love behind my back, until I turned her deception into the most calculated revenge she never saw coming. Let's begin. From the outside, Mason and Elise Bennett were the textbook image of a quiet suburban couple in Connecticut. Successful careers, a tidy little home with a garden Elise proudly curated, and neighbors who waved every morning as Mason backed out of their driveway at 8:03 a.m. sharp. But behind closed doors, something had shifted, something that couldn't be seen in photos or small talk. It was subtle at first, a certain coldness, like a room that had lost its warmth. Mason noticed it one evening in late autumn when Elise brushed past him in the kitchen, her phone clutched tight like it carried state secrets. She hadn't touched him in months. 8, to be exact. Every time he tried to hold her, to kiss her like he used to, she offered the same deflection with soft apologies and empty reassurances. "It's not you, Maze," she'd murmur, eyes avoiding his. "Just hormones, or maybe burnout from work." She always sounded like she believed it herself. At first, he did too. But Mason was not a man who ignored patterns. He was a structural engineer by trade, trained to see when things didn't add up. And things were definitely not adding up. She began spending more time with friends on Friday nights, and when she returned, she looked more refreshed than exhausted. Her style evolved too, plunging necklines, bold lipstick, perfume that lingered long after she'd walked by. Yet he, her husband, was met with closed doors and cool distance. Still, he waited. He gave space. He hoped. Until that barbecue. They were standing near the grill, laughing with friends, when Dave, one of Mason's co-workers, casually said, "Saw Elise at Downstreet Lounge last Friday. Looked like she was having the time of her life. Who was that guy with her?" Mason felt the words hit like a freight train. He blinked, laughed it off, asked for more details with a calmness that masked the burning questions in his head. Elise had told him she'd spent the night at her sister's, and now a picture was forming in his mind that made his stomach twist. That was the night the illusion broke. He didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, Mason became methodical, strategic. The man who had spent years calculating stress loads and fracture points now turned those skills inward. He observed, noted, tested her reactions to simple questions, offered suggestions for date nights, short trips, weekends away. She turned them all down, too tired, too busy, too overwhelmed. But when friends offered the same ideas, she was radiant, excited, quick to clear her calendar. That wasn't stress. That was preference. One night, Mason quietly checked her purse while she was in the shower. He wasn't proud of it, but something inside him needed answers. Inside was a receipt, a bar tab from a downtown hotel lounge, time-stamped the same evening she'd returned home, saying she worked late. Mason sat on the edge of the bed that night, heart hollow, eyes dry. He realized something terrifying. He wasn't just losing his wife. He was being played by her. And that was the moment Mason Bennett, the man Elise believed was too gentle, too passive, too trusting, decided the game was over. She just didn't know it yet. By the next morning, his plan was already in motion. He started with 3 phone calls. A reputable private investigator named Colton Hughes, a well-respected divorce attorney named Fiona Myers, and his longtime banker, who helped him quietly separate his finances under the radar. His voice never wavered during those conversations. But inside, a new version of Mason was awakening. One who wasn't interested in confrontation, but in quiet, calculated devastation. Colton met him that evening in a discreet office tucked behind a strip mall. "They always think they're being clever," Colton said, leaning back in his chair. "But in the end, they all slip up." Mason slid over the details, the changed habits, the late nights, the laughter over texts she never shared, the intimacy that had vanished only at home. Colton nodded slowly. "Give me 2 weeks," he said. Mason nodded back. "Make it count." Then he left, walking back into the cool air with a steel in his chest he hadn't felt in years. The truth was on its way. And Elise had no idea that the life she'd so carefully staged was about to collapse with the same precision her husband used to tear down unstable structures. And he wasn't just planning to leave. He was planning to make her watch everything fall apart, one brutal revelation at a time. The following Friday, Elise once again claimed exhaustion, claimed she was staying in, claimed she'd finally take a night to relax, maybe watch something light on Netflix. Mason smiled, offered to cook her dinner. She declined, said she just wanted solitude. She left the house 30 minutes later in a figure-hugging black dress and red heels Mason hadn't seen in over a year. He stood by the living room window, just out of sight, and watched her drive away. A quiet breath escaped him. Not pain, not rage. Resolve. 3 hours later, Colton texted. Got her. Hotel bar. Same guy. Got photos. The next morning, Mason sat alone at the kitchen table, sipping coffee as dawn spilled across the countertops. Elise came home just before 6 a.m., slipping in as quietly as she could. She jumped slightly when she saw him awake. Couldn't sleep, he said evenly, not asking where she'd been. Elise offered a weak smile and said she was up all night comforting Maddie, who was going through a breakup. Mason simply nodded. Tough night, huh? She didn't realize that Colton had already sent him a dozen high-resolution shots. Elise laughing, clinking glasses, placing her hand on the man's thigh, then disappearing into a hotel elevator with him well past midnight. For someone who claimed she had no emotional or physical energy left for her husband, she looked pretty lively in those photos. The following week, Mason doubled down. He mirrored her rhythm. He acted as if nothing was wrong, greeted her with warmth, asked about her day, pretended not to notice when she stepped outside for hushed phone calls or returned home, exhausted after staying out. But the evidence kept piling in. Surveillance footage of her visiting a man's townhouse twice a week. A copy of her text logs showing affectionate nicknames and promises of weekend getaways. An audio recording from a brunch spot where Elise told her lover, he's clueless. I say I'm tired or hormonal, and he just backs off. It's adorable, really. Mason listened to that one with headphones on while Elise was upstairs showering. And when she stepped out, humming some pop song like nothing was amiss, he was already updating a spreadsheet titled, Full Timeline of Deceit. Mason wasn't just gathering evidence. He was building a case. Financially, he had already opened a new account, rerouted his direct deposits, transferred ownership of several assets he legally held prior to the marriage back under his name exclusively, all within legal limits, all by the book. He scanned and stored every financial document, every mortgage record, tax return, property title, and even printed copies of insurance policies, keeping it all in a locked fireproof safe Elise had never known about. When Colton delivered the final report, a thick tab binder containing photographs, text transcripts, GPS logs, and receipts, Mason sat in silence for almost an hour. The last entry chilled him. A full weekend trip with her lover in upstate New York. Elise had said it was a women's leadership retreat. Mason stared at her smiling face in the hotel lobby, leaning into a man who wasn't her husband. They looked like a happy couple. He didn't feel anger anymore. He felt precision. That night, Elise came home to the smell of her favorite lasagna and a bottle of red already decanted. You're in a good mood, she said with a coy smile. I missed you. Mason replied, brushing a kiss on her cheek. She looked startled. I thought maybe we could reconnect, he continued. Just you and me. She hesitated, clearly flustered, then mumbled about feeling a little under the weather. Rain check. Sure, Mason said, his smile never faltering. He cleared the plates later and took out the trash, humming softly. Elise had no idea she was about to become the star of a confrontation so calculated, so airtight, that no lie could survive it. She had spent months crafting a double life. But Mason Bennett had used that time to engineer her collapse, brick by deceitful brick. And the final nail would be driven with the same calm tone and steady hand she thought were too gentle to fight back. All he had to do now was choose the night. The chosen night arrived sooner than expected. It was a rainy Friday, the same kind Elise usually claimed to spend with the girls. But Mason had checked Colton's messages earlier that afternoon. Same man. Same hotel. Room 502. ETA 9:15 p.m. By 7 p.m., Mason had already laid the folder on the coffee table. The rain ticked gently against the windows like a drumbeat before a war. Elise descended the stairs wearing her favorite green satin blouse, the one she hadn't worn for Mason in years, paired with skinny jeans and her brown leather boots. casual enough to look innocent, sexy enough to reveal her true destination. "I won't be late," she said, grabbing her keys. "Maddie just wants to vent over wine." She's still hung up on her ex. Mason didn't blink. "Tell her I said hang in there." She smiled. "You're sweet." And with that, she was gone. 2 hours later, the door creaked open. Mason sat calmly in the living room, a fire burning in the hearth. Elise stepped inside, drenched from the storm, her mascara slightly smudged. She wasn't expecting him to be awake. He stood. No yelling. No accusations. "Can we talk for a minute?" he asked. Elise froze in place. Something in his tone was different. She nodded slowly, setting her purse on the counter. "What's going on?" Mason gestured to the couch. "Sit." She did. He picked up the thick manila folder and rested it on his lap. 8 months, Elise. That's how long I waited. Gave you space. Let you breathe. Try to fix something I thought was broken. But it turns out it wasn't broken. He opened the folder and laid the first photo on the table. Elise at the rooftop bar, laughing, holding hands with a man in a charcoal blazer. "That's not Maddie," he said. Her face paled. "Mason." He held up a hand. "No more lies. I want you to see what betrayal looks like from the outside." Photo after photo slid across the table. Her entering the townhouse. Her checking into the hotel. Her sharing kisses outside the valet stand. Each one another stitch in the tapestry of deceit. She trembled. I can explain." "Don't," Mason said coldly. "Let's not insult each other." Then he reached into the folder and pulled out a small digital recorder. One button pressed later, her own voice filled the room. "He has no idea. I say I'm too tired, and he just buys it, never questions it. He still plans date nights. It's honestly kind of sweet, in a pathetic way." Elise gasped. "You recorded me?" "No," Mason replied, locking eyes with her. "You recorded yourself. You just didn't notice who was sitting 2 tables behind you." She looked like she might faint. He continued, relentless but composed. "For 8 months, I was the understanding husband. You weaponized my love, used my patience as cover for your double life. You didn't just cheat, Elise. You mocked me for trusting you." Her hand shook. "Mason, please. I'm not here to beg or argue," he said. "I'm here to inform you." He stood, walking over to the fireplace mantel where a white envelope sat. "These are divorce papers. Filed Monday. You'll be served formally at your office by Tuesday, but I thought you deserved the courtesy of seeing them first." Tears streamed down her cheeks now, no longer from guilt, but from fear. "You can't just end it like this." "You ended it," Mason said softly, "when you turn our marriage into a punchline." She rushed to him, grabbing his arm. "We can fix this. Therapy, counseling. Mason, I'll cut him off tonight. I swear." He pulled away. "This isn't about him. It never was. You chose deception. Over and over again." Her voice cracked. "What do I do now?" Mason looked around the home they'd once built together. Now you start over." "Because I already did." He handed her a second envelope. "This one details your financial exit. You'll find 1 month's worth of living expenses, a list of what's yours, and information about a storage unit where your personal items will be sent." Her mouth dropped. "You're serious?" "I'm done," Mason said. "With games. With manipulation. With being the man who loved someone who treated loyalty like a joke." Elise dropped to the couch, stunned, defeated. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It was never supposed to get serious. I just felt seen, desired, important. And I made you feel invisible?" he asked. She nodded, breaking into sobs. "I needed something, anything, that made me feel alive again." Mason's voice didn't rise. "Then I hope the man you threw everything away for makes you feel alive, when he realizes you have nothing left." He walked to the door, picked up his overnight bag, and turned back once more. "You underestimated me, Elise. You thought I was too gentle to notice, too kind to fight back. But the truth." He opened the door. "I was just patient." And with that, Mason left, leaving behind the storm, the lies, and the woman who never imagined the man she betrayed would walk away with his dignity, and hers shattered beyond repair. Elise was at work when it all unraveled. The envelope arrived by courier, right at her desk. She opened it casually, probably expecting a marketing contract. What she found were the official divorce papers. Her eyes scanned the bold letters, then the accompanying summary of evidence. Her breath hitched. Photos, timestamps, transcripts, a full breakdown of hotel stays, restaurant visits, and audio quotes. Her own words mocking the man she once vowed to love. The blood drained from her face. Within an hour, her texts flooded Mason's phone. "We need to talk. You didn't have to do this at work. Please, just hear me out." He didn't answer. Colton, the private investigator, had advised this approach. Serve her publicly, leave no room for denial, and eliminate the chance of her spinning a story. Mason hadn't liked the idea at first, but now, he was glad he followed through. Later that evening, Elise showed up at the house unannounced. Mason opened the door just wide enough to meet her eyes. "You humiliated me," she snapped, the fear in her voice poorly hidden behind indignation. "No," Mason replied calmly. "You did that to yourself. I just stopped covering for you." She softened. "You don't have to do this. You don't have to throw it all away. I'm sorry, okay? I really am. I got lost. I didn't mean." "You didn't mean to get caught," he corrected. "That's what you didn't mean." Mason, it didn't even mean anything. He wasn't serious. It wasn't love. "That's the thing," he said. "You didn't need to love him. You just needed to respect me. And you couldn't even do that." She stepped forward. "What do you want me to say? That I was selfish? That I took advantage of you? Fine. I did. But we build a life." "No," he interrupted. "I built it. You hid behind it. There's a difference." She was quiet now, staring down at the porch. "I lost everything," she said. Mason nodded. "So did I. The difference is, I didn't throw it away." She lingered a moment longer, as if waiting for a sliver of hope, but Mason only looked at her with the kind of silence that doesn't invite redemption, only closure. When she turned to leave, he didn't watch her go, because in his heart, she had left a long time ago. 3 weeks passed. The divorce moved swiftly. Mason's attorney submitted the mountain of evidence, including photos, hotel receipts, and most damaging of all, the audio clip where Elise laughed about deceiving him. The court didn't just frown upon her actions. They rejected every request her lawyer made, including temporary support. She had contributed nothing to the mortgage. Every financial thread in their shared life had been Mason's. Her attorney, clearly out of moves, tried to negotiate privately, a settlement, anything. Mason declined. What was fair was already on paper. She'd get her personal belongings, her car, and a month's worth of funds to relocate. Everything else stayed with him. Word spread, not because Mason gossiped, but because Elise started talking, framing herself as the victim, claiming Mason had blindsided her, made everything public, left her with nothing. But Mason had already prepared for that too. He quietly shared the facts with mutual friends, not to ruin her, just to stop the lies. He let them see the evidence for themselves. And when they did, they stepped back. Her calls went unanswered. Her social calendar vanished. Meanwhile, Mason's world began to breathe again. His home felt still, but no longer cold. The silence no longer meant emotional distance. It meant peace. No more pretending. No more paranoia. No more feeling like he was asking too much by wanting love from his own wife. Then, one Saturday afternoon it happened. He saw her at the local grocery store. She looked smaller somehow, not in size, but in spirit. Her makeup was minimal, her posture guarded. She pushed her cart like she didn't want to be seen. She saw him. He saw the flicker of recognition, then guilt. She stepped toward him, opened her mouth. "Mason." But he kept walking. Not fast, not cruel, just done. That was the last time they ever spoke. Months later, friends mentioned she'd moved back in with her parents. The man she sacrificed everything for, gone. Vanished weeks after the support dried up. Turns out he wasn't looking for responsibility, just a thrill. Mason, on the other hand, moved forward. He rebuilt, slowly, on his terms. And then one day, when he least expected it, he met someone. Her name was Grace. She didn't lie. She didn't deflect. She didn't treat trust like a game. She spoke with intention, acted with consistency, loved with honesty. Mason realized something vital then. His ex-wife hadn't just broken a vow. She'd nearly broken his ability to believe he deserved more. But he did. He always did. And now, he lived with that truth every day. The betrayal no longer owned him. He had reclaimed his life, with quiet strength, undeniable clarity, and a revenge far greater than anger. Freedom.